Thank you for tuning in. You're listening to WSLR LP 96.5 FM Sarasota and WBPV 100.1 FM Bradenton. You're listening to SynthWorld. I am your host, DJ Nomad, and I am thrilled to be joined here today with, I would say, the Swiss Army knife of synthwave music, Eric, aka Sferro. Sferro, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, dude.
Absolutely. Means a lot. There's so many things I want to dive into, but I have to mention that you are the first guest from Ohio, where I'm from.
Well, hopefully I can hold it down for the Ohio folk.
Yes, represent.
You represent, yes.
Absolutely, man. It's nice to talk to someone from my home state, where I grew up. It means a lot. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned you're in the Akron area. Is that right?
Yes, yes. I live in Akron. I grew up in this area. That's actually right outside of Akron, a place called Wadsworth. Yeah,
Okay.
been here my whole life.
Man, that's awesome. All right. Well, and I want to dive into that a little bit more, maybe how that's played into your music production, your sound.
Sure.
But going all the way back, I want to bring things back to the beginning for you, when you really like truly connected with music, if you will, on like a deeper level. Do you recall that first experience, and then like what got you into producing as well?
Yeah, I would say like ever since I was a baby, I literally was listening to music. Like there's actually pictures of me with headphones on as a baby. My parents just always had me surrounded by music. It was awesome. Luckily, my dad had a really good taste. Like people around here have questionable tastes, a lot of people, and I'm thankful for my parents because otherwise, I'm sure I would just be listening to Kid Rock all day. I think that I think that what really piqued my interest, like I always loved music. I loved video game soundtracks, but when I was like 14, I was on my way to a Cavs game and there was this radio station in Cleveland. I don't recall the name of it, but they played Fatboy Slim, and it was like the first time I ever heard anything like remotely electronic. And it just, I don't know, it just changed everything for me. Like I wanted to make it immediately. I wanted more of it. I started researching when I got home. It was harder to find music back in the day. It took me like years to find out what that song was. But it was a song for Lindy from Fatboy Slim, and that song like literally changed everything for me.
Wow. Okay. I don't think I know that track. I know Fatboy Slim, of course, but
Yeah. Oh,
I
I
don't.
recommend it, man.
Song for Lindy, you said?
Song for Lindy, yeah.
Okay, very cool. All right, I'll have to check that out. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, those three big C's, they all have some interesting kind of art scenes. So not a surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now is music production your only creative outlet?
Yes. Yeah, it is. I wish I was good at visual stuff. I'm complete trash. All my friends that produce are like crazy multi-talented, like they can do everything. Like my only, it's not a creative outlet, but the only other thing I consider myself good at is playing Halo. And I think that's like an Ohio thing. Like people from Ohio are just like gifted at that game for some reason. But
That's
yeah,
so.
nothing creative.
So a lot of the like best Halo online players are from Ohio.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's not, I mean, some of my most seminal like gaming memories growing up were Halo, Halo 2
Mhm.
and Halo 3, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Especially the online play. So that's
That's cool.
kind of funny. Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah, but nothing else really creatively. It's always been music.
Well, now to round you out maybe a little more at your character and whatnot, what do you like to do for fun outside of music?
I used to skate a lot, skateboard. I don't do it as much anymore because I'm freaking old. Play games a lot. I still play Halo. I play Destiny. Really into video games. I do a lot of music.
The catalog is deep, diverse. So before we tap into that though, what are you gaming on right now?
I play on PC,
Okay, and what are
and
you jamming on, I guess is the.
we're playing a lot of Destiny right now, but it was Halo Infinite before that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, and we'll dive into, I know you have, obviously a lot of like video game influence in your music,
Mhm.
and most recent release has obviously like very themed that direction. So we're gonna dive into that. But I want to
Awesome.
know, yeah, I want to know more specifically though. You have this background, it sounds like building of electronic music. How did you find, synthwave, chillsynth, vaporwave, every one of these waves that you kind of dive into?
So in the early days, there was this collective called Valerie, and they had artists. I don't know if you've heard of like College,
Hmm?
Minitel Rose, who else? Outrunners. They were all focused on this really heavy nostalgia 80s sound, and I thought it was awesome. So it immediately, like I had just finished school at Berkeley College of Music. I was taking online courses, so I had this like confidence in production, kind of had an idea what I wanted to do. And so I discovered Valerie like around the same time. And when that happened, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try and make some music like this. And I already had a label that I had planned on making because I was in a band with one of my best friends called Girlfriend, and we never released anything like ever. The only thing we ever released was just like it sits in a basement at my mom's house. But we
At
we
Girlfriend Records now? Is that what
so
the
yeah, so that was our plan was like, okay, we're Girlfriend and we'll just make our own label and it'll be called Girlfriend Records. That was kind of the start of Girlfriend Records. I put out some 80s inspired stuff on that and then started meeting friends online who were also like making that kind of stuff and then started signing people. I met like Lamatos and Ghost and Addy Hawk and Tommy 86 and just a bunch of really cool people.
Mhm.
And yeah, then the label just kind of grew from there. And
That's really
yeah,
cool. I didn't know anything about that, so that's awesome. And I knew you were part of Girlfriend Records, so that is cool to hear the kind of the beginning of all of that.
yeah, yep. Founded that in like 2008 and then um, ran it for a long time. And then eventually everyone like went their separate ways and the label was just kind of sitting dormant. So I actually just gave the label to one of the artists, Jonatron. So he runs it now. I'm actually not involved with it anymore.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Well, that's a bummer. Hopefully we can Jonatron can reignite it. That's such a cool name for a record company.
Yeah, he has. He's been putting stuff out on it, a lot
Gosh.
of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. So you've been at this in the scene. After discussing the foundations of Girlfriend Records, we discuss his insatiable desire to always evolve and produce. So you've been at this in the scene for a really long time. I mean, especially compared to some of the other artists I've interviewed who've only been playing this music for maybe a handful of years, right?
Yeah.
So I want to know, I mean, this is how I feel about synthwave and every one of these little areas, these nooks and crannies of electronic music. I come from house, trance, techno. I love all of that stuff, but there's
Mhm.
something about this music that just I can't get enough of it. I keep coming back for more and more and more. So, what does that for you? What makes you keep coming back for more?
That's a good question. I I don't know. I don't even know how much I consider myself part of the synthwave scene anymore. Like I'm still friends with everybody, but I feel like my music has kind of moved away from that typical kind of 80s outrun style. It's definitely like there, the backbone, the Sferro backbone is still there, but like yeah, I just kind of feel like I've branched in different directions, but I think that's what makes me come back. I mean, I have to be writing, I have to be doing music because it's the only thing that helps me mentally. Like I have to be creating. And yeah, I pull from nostalgia. Nostalgia is like my comfort space and I feel like music's my purpose. So yeah, I feel like I have to keep at it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I feel very similarly, and yeah, I mean that's one of the things I love about your catalog and this area as well, where you have, I always use kind of synthwave as like almost like a more general term, right? Like that,
Mhm.
like nostalgic, not just nostalgia, right? And like a play into older analog synths, anything along those lines, right?
Yeah.
And that's where it kind of expands, and our show really tries to do that. I
Yeah,
love
and
catalog for
that's
sure.
like the beauty of it, electronic music too. Like we could just do whatever we want. Like my past influences is definitely a lot of French house. Like
Mhm.
I love French house music and I can go that direction. I can go in drum and bass. I can do everything as long as I still have like my own version of it. I'm putting my own stamp on it. So yeah, that's why electronic music is so freaking awesome, man.
Yes, and the capabilities are endless with what you can do,
Yep.
especially with like with a digital a DAW, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, and you always have that backbone there, but you go all over the place as you mentioned. I mean, you have stuff that sounds techno-y, stuff that
Hmm.
sounds housey, dark synth, ED, Outrun. I mean, you really go all over the place. And your last album takes it in another direction that I don't even know exactly what you call it. Well, maybe we're gonna dive into that into Cheeky in a little bit here, but
Okay.
because there's so much to talk about on that album and just recently. But anyways, I do want to know where is it? It's Sferro, right? Am I saying it right?
Yep. You're saying it right.
Okay, perfect. So I just want to know, where did that come from? And yeah, let's start with that. Where did that one come from?
That's literally my last name.
Oh, Eric.
I was Eric Sferro. Yeah. I literally was like, I need to come up with a name, and I'm just gonna be as lazy as possible. So let's use my last name.
Well, lucky you. You got a cool last name. I mean, I immediately thought, okay, what is that? Is that like a French like like luxury wallet brand or like purse brand? I don't know. I was like, you know what I mean?
Well, thank you.
I thought it was something like
I think
that.
it's pretty cool last name.
Totally. No, that's an awesome name. Okay, very simple, but it is direct. It is to you.
Yeah.
So, speaking of which, I did. With a decade and a half of music production under his belt, Eric details the organic process of exploring a vast multitude of subgenres. But I do want to know, I was actually kind of curious whether it was intentional for you to kind of really explore every little area, if you will, every nook and cranny of this area of electronic music, or did that just kind of organically happen for you?
It definitely was organic. It mostly came just I was getting bored with the genre. I wanted more for the genre, and so it's natural for me to just pull from all the things, all the sounds and songs that made me feel good and different genres. And yeah, I just I can't stick to like a really traditional synthwave type of sound. Like I knew I had to pull from different areas and try and push the genre because I was around since the beginning, so I do respect and love it, and I want more for it. So
You're still a part of it, even if you don't think so. I mean,
yeah, yeah, it's always going to be a part of me, right? So
yeah, no, you still play a role in that, for sure. A shadow role, maybe, but
yeah, right.
no, you're a significant artist for sure. So
Well,
I
thank you, man. I really appreciate that.
Oh yeah, I've known about you for multiple years now. So it's me reaching out now is not a product of that, taking forever or anything. It's just I've had this show for less than a year. So
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
but
congrats on the show, by the way.
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I want to ask you, what would you say you're like most satisfied with to hear, and how you produce how you're how you've grown as a producer,
Hmm.
considering the nostalgic nature of this music. Is there anything from the past, from your past releases, that you think, oh, maybe you'd like to revive in some way?
Yeah, I feel like my production has definitely evolved and gotten better, especially just my mixing in general. But it was, I feel like I'm most proud of my stuff not being as repetitive. My early stuff is super repetitive, which at the same time, I honestly, I love repetition. It just kind of like puts my mind at ease. But
Mm,
it's been nice to, as I grow, to yeah, get the production levels up a little higher and just focus on mixing and
sure. I know EQing, working with Mondays is difficult, and a lot of people struggle with it.
mhm.
So
Yeah, it's something you're always working on. So
yeah. And is there anything from the past maybe that you can think of that you're like, you're proud of that, and you maybe want to revive some twang, or
mm,
I don't know. It's okay if not. I'm just curious.
honestly, no, I can't think of anything. Sorry.
Okay, you're unlike the genre on some level. You like to be more of like a clean slate in that way, right?
Definitely. Yeah, totally.
Moving forward. I like it. I dig it. I would say we're going back to the future of electronic music because it's still moving forward. It's just right,
Yeah, totally.
nostalgic approach to it. So anyway, I want to ask you another good question. I know I know that like sampling isn't like a massive part of your music, but I've heard a lot of songs of yours that have some cool samples in them.
Mhm.
So I want to just ask you if you do have any secrets to picking like the perfect sample for a song.
That's also a very good question. I just feel like maybe this is a generic answer, but it's just kind of a feeling thing. It's kind of like, I don't know, like picking the right golf club or something.
Sure,
I
maybe
don't know.
sing for for the song maybe a little bit.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Make sure it's maybe somewhat fitting for a song or completely contrasting it one or the other.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Now, speaking of feels, though, you had a lot of those on your most recent feature album, Cheeky. Am I saying that right?
It's chicky.
Chicky. Okay. Um, so, I know you had just reading the description of it, the Sega Dream, is it Dreamcast, right?
Yep, it was a Dreamcast.
Yeah, the Dreamcast plays a massive influence on this album. I've been always been a massive fan of concept artists and concept albums. And so hearing you just fully commit to this sound is incredible.
Well,
And then,
thank you, man.
yeah, and then exploring, you know, or what feels like exploring areas of that music that weren't explored by the people who produced the music for the games, right?
Hmm.
So it's so amazing. Tell me real quick the name Chicky. Where's that come from?
There is an artist who did a soundtrack for a game called Bomberman Hero, and her name was June Chikuma, and her nickname was Chicky. I
Hmm.
guess people called her Chicky. I just found that out and I liked that. And she was a huge influence on the album to begin with, even though she didn't have anything to, well, she might have done some Dreamcast Bomberman games, but there's just something about her drum and bass style that really resonated with me and inspired me a lot to even explore drum and bass and jungle in the first place. So it's just kind of like, yeah, dedicated the name to her.
Dope. I always thought that was going to be what the answer was. It was something like that. Oh man, that's awesome. We just started like kind of incorporating drum and bass to our show as well.
Yeah,
Another
it's on the come up, man.
Yeah, and another subgenre that didn't get a lot of love for a long time, right? I mean, obviously did in like the kind of like 90s, but
Yep.
late 90s. So happy to hear it. Excited to hear more of that style, if you will, even if it's just pieces and bits and pieces here and there,
Hmm.
knowing your style to move forward. But I want to know, reading about it, it sounds like getting the Dreamcast was like a pretty important moment for you musically, uh,
Definitely.
otherwise as a kid. So can you speak to that maybe a little bit?
There's like a combination of the Dreamcast at the time. Like, I believe I was in middle school. It was this giant leap in technology. And it was also like the graphics were insane, but it was also like the first time I was hearing like drum and bass stuff. I did hear some on Nintendo 64, but there was a lot of it that went with the Dreamcast games. And it was also a combination of that and the fact that my parents did not want to buy me another console. They were like, "We already bought you like three consoles. Like, dude, you do not need a Dreamcast." So I thought I would never get one, and I would play them at my friend's house, and I just want it so bad. And then, yeah, the day I finally got it, like, oh man, it was just a huge moment for me.
Sounds like when I got my PlayStation 2.
Yeah, okay.
Oh my God. I mean, I love the Dreamcast too. I had a friend with a Dreamcast, but my
Mhm.
it was partial to Sony, I guess. So
Yeah.
PlayStation it was. Oh man, that's awesome. Okay. What was the first game you clicked on? Do you remember?
Um, Sonic Adventure.
Sonic.
And
Nice.
and then I had Jet Grind Radio, and that game, man. Oh my God. If you look it up on any modern consoles or like Steam, it's called Jet Set Radio.
Hmm.
But man, what an influence it had. It was like inline skating and like graffiti and drum and bass and house and hip hop. And it was a total vibe.
Oh yeah, man. Whoever was putting that music
After
together.
covering his most recent full length release, Chicky, we move on to a recently released single, Can You Feel the Night? A house driven track that alludes to further changes to his sound.
I do want to kind of move into the most up to date, if you will, release from you.
Yeah.
And Can You Feel the Night? Um, and boy, it just spans quite a few genres. Grooves right off the bat. You got vocal chops that get a trance fan excited. You progress through different like layers of different subgenres for a little while, and then you kind of find like a prog house feel, if you will, before totally just fading off into the ether. So, which I just loved. Do is this canary in the coal mine kind of moment? Is this more a sign of more this to come from Sferro?
Yeah. This is the first single from an album that definitely has this kind of vibe. It's more this like I don't know, 90s Matrix vibes, breakbeat. I pull from a lot of places. Yeah, it's like ravey stuff, breakbeat, trip hop, just all over the place. I'm so stoked on this album, man. I really am. I'm hoping to have it out this year. I'm talking to a label and an artist right now to do the cover. So hopefully it's out this year. At the very least, another single's coming. So
Okay, cool. Well, that's great to hear. Good news. I just interviewed recently King Palm, who released another song that, falls in that same kind of realm, right? That
yeah.
like mid to late 90s, kind of like, yeah, mixture of house and trip hop and whatever you want to call
Hmm.
it, right? Like a little techno. So, anyways, I'm just excited to hear that. Good news there.
Thanks, man. I'm
So
so stoked.
I am too, man. That was really cool and refreshing. Mondays and I talk about how to kind of keep the chill synthwave area fresh and moving forward and not stagnating, which some artists I feel like kind of have stagnated a little bit in their sound and their
Sure.
development. I think that's easy to see. And he has been working on music that has a lot of that same backbone, but also isn't incorporating like house elements. I think that's an important part of it is like finding those moments where bringing up the beat and the energy, right?
Mhm.
Where if you just stick with chill synth or chill wave, you're oftentimes not going to get that. And so, yeah,
Yeah, totally, dude.
for sure.
Stagnation is like my biggest fear. I just don't.
Sure. No,
I
and
don't want to.
I believe it. You're always moving forward. And I'm going to take you back one more time, though, because I want to
Yeah.
ask you about, you know, you've been at this for a while and you have been at the very beginning, basically, of most of these scenes and subgenres. So I'm just curious, you don't have to take a lot of time on it, but, how do you feel like you've seen these styles evolve? And did you even realize at the time that you were at the beginning of something, like that would become something bigger than what it was then?
Yeah, I always had a feeling that it was going to keep growing. Back in the day, we would release songs on MySpace. God, I'm so freaking old, dude. And
I had my face. How old are you?
I'm 38.
38. Okay. I'm 31, almost 32. So
Oh, youngster.
still, yeah, yeah, I guess.
So
Well,
yeah, we would release
a
songs
lot of
on
these other guys who are producing.
yeah, on MySpace and like blogs, and then we'd be stoked if there was a site called Hype FM. It was called Hype, or maybe it was called, oh no, it's called Hype M, Hype Machine. Were you familiar with that?
I don't think so. Is that like what was that? Like a Reddit?
It kind of, yeah, it sort of like basically took all, because back in the day, you got your music from like blogs, like specifically like dance music, underground dance music and stuff. A lot of it you got from blogs. So basically, what Hype M did was like take a bunch of different popular blogs and like combine them on one site and like give you like you could like heart and like the songs and stuff. And there was like I don't want to call it a leaderboard, but it was sort of like a leaderboard, like a top 50 or 100
Huh.
from songs that you would just find on these blogs. So like getting a song on that was like amazing. That was kind of like I don't know, when I got a song on a top 10 of that and I thought that was it. I was like, "Oh my God, like I imagine my music's never going to go any further than that. That's super cool." And then like yeah, fast forward how many years and like I have a song in Forza and like all this crazy shit has happened, but
Oh man,
yeah,
I
like
didn't know that. That's epic. Wow.
yeah, man, that happened this year, and it's ridiculous. So yeah, I felt like it was gonna grow, but I never thought it would get any kind of like mass appeal, and we would get to this level where like it's in popular video games, especially a series I love. Like I used to play Forza like as soon as it came out, I was a big Forza fan, and I could have never imagined one of my songs would be in it. So it's so cool, man.
Yeah, that's about as cool as it gets.
Yeah, that's peak for me.
I'm smiling ear to ear. I'm sure you can see. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
you can see. You stuck with it. You grinded through that, and it was worth it, man.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it definitely wasn't easy to stick to it. There were definitely a lot of times I wanted to just completely give up. So,
Yeah, I know. And synthwave, all of this music is ready to take that next step into more popularity, more vision, more people seeing it. So
We move on to his future touring plans, as well as whether or not he and Makeup and Vanity Set will reunite again as Wavefinder.
So yeah, I also want to just ask you about, we kind of touched on your upcoming album that you're working on, which is no surprise there. Um, so I want to ask you, is there anything else about your future plans that you can divulge? Anything about whether or not Wavefinder will eventually find its wave again and get back on track? And then also, I just found out from you that you do. I forgot that you were a part of Wavefinder, so and that you do play live. So I guess it's the other part of that as well is like where's the live performance part of what Sferro going?
yeah. So I have a new album coming out. I have a new single coming out. Today, I released a collab with Caspro. He put out a full album of collabs. So that came out today.
Nice.
Um, really stoked on that track. Also in a band called Hyperlink Dreamsync, which like I'm super passionate about.
Oh,
Uh,
really? What kind of music?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like 90s trip hop stuff
Okay.
with maybe a little bit of ambient, a little bit of breakbeat, but dude, I love that project so much. It's me, Mecha Maiko, and Phono Ghosts. We started a band called Hyperlink Dreamsync, and that album is pretty much done. We're putting the final or finishing touches on it. So we already have an album before Haley joined the band, Mecha Maiko, that doesn't have any vocals, but
Oh, so
that's a
vocals are coming for album number two.
yeah, on every song there's vocals. So really stoked.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool.
And then Wayfinder too. We're definitely still going to be at it. I think next year we'll probably start picking up the shows again, hopefully. But we have a second record done, and we've just kind of been pitching it to labels and just kind of feeling if anyone's interested and stuff. But we've been playing those songs live, and it's definitely different than the first record. But it'll be interesting to see what people think.
Oh, I'm excited to hear it. I mean, you want to talk about two of the most dynamic artists in this scene. I'm not just saying this because you're on my show. You
Oh,
make up in Vanity Set, right? If I'm not
yeah.
mistaken. Yeah, you two both have extensive catalogs, a lot of range in what you can do, and make it sound good. Yeah, you guys are a really cool duo. So anyone who's listening to this, check out Wavefinder's first album. What's the name of the album again? I forget.
Wayfinder.
Oh, it's just self-titled. Okay. Check
Yeah.
out Wavefinder. Check out Makeup and Vanity Set as well. I mean, just incredible artists. So
Appreciate that, man.
we're at the end here. I'm sad to say I have no more questions for you, although I have many more wanted, but I want to make sure to get our listeners, a direct line on where to go for more Sferro music, more Sferro, Wavefinder, everything. Where can they find you?
Sure. Thank you, man. You can follow me on Instagram, Safaro_official. It's just Safaro on Spotify, also sfero.bandcamp.com. And then you can basically, if you just go to my Instagram, you can see all my other projects. I got them on my page there on my profile. So yeah, it would be awesome if you checked me out.
Yes, please do. Please do. It's been so great chatting. Thank you again for being here, man. I appreciate you taking the time, giving me some of your insight into your mind and your music. And do you have any final parting words for our listeners before we go?
Um, no, not really. I want to thank you for having like just really considerate and thoughtful questions. It seemed like you really like the music, which is refreshing. So I really appreciate being interviewed by someone like you.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope to keep making it better and better. Anyways, appreciate it again. Hopefully we'll have you on again, maybe next year when things are picking back up and maybe there's some more, a new Sferro album out. So
Yeah, that sounds good, dude.
yeah, thanks again for your time. Again, everybody, that was Ohio-based electronic music Swiss Army knife. I'm not even going to say synthwave. Uh, Eric, aka Sferro. Thanks again, man. Take care.
Yep, you too, man.